Robert Rivas here, and I'm here with 16-time Grammy Award-winning Gibby Velasquez. How are you doing, amigo?
I'm doing here, man. Glad to be here.
There we go. Glad you were able to take the time. You're a busy person, amigo. Even more so en las mañanas, man. You're having your taquito, your cafecito, and all that other good stuff. But that's what it's about, man, right?
Yes, sir.
Wait, Gibby, you were telling me you had a pork chop taco?
Actually, it was a huevo ranchero plate with a pork chop on the side.
Oh man, for the person that just doesn't care anymore, I'm the same way, dude. Échale those pork chops, y extra papas, and homemade tortillas, and all that good stuff. Amigo, now you're actually kind of from San Antonio, but you're not. You're from Seguin, ¿verdad?
I was born in Seguin, and my family's from New Braunfels. My mom had her doctorate in Seguin, I guess. But when I started school, by then I was in San Antonio. My dad, worked here. My mom, my grandparents were there. I was raised mostly over there before I went to school. A lot of memories in rural Comal County.
It,
But
it's
I started school here. For all intents and purposes, I'm from San Antonio.
¿Qué tenía Seguin? Los matadors, ¿verdad?
I was raised more in New Braunfels.
There you go. Oh, it's the Gibby. You have been a part of so many music projects, CDs, albums, however you want to put it. You've been a part of so many of them. And at another interview that we're going to be doing, we're going to talk about all that. But this morning, what I want to do, I want to put the focus, I want to put the spotlight on a very, very special production, very, very special CD. And I'm going to go far and beyond, in my humble opinion, if not the greatest Tejano CD of all time, one of the greatest Tejano CDs of all time, Latin Breed, Breaking the Rules. Now, you produced the CD, ¿verdad?
Yes, I did, man. I'm glad you brought that up. The fact that it may be perhaps one of your favorite projects, but so many people down through the years. We did this album like 30 years ago, probably already. It was 1989 when it was released. But regardless, a lot of people have brought that up, to me about that being kind of a landmark album, a cult following kind of thing that to this day is still kind of way ahead of its time. Okay, when we put that thing together, there was a lot of progressive stuff in there, right? We did some R&B stuff, and gosh, it still lives on today.
It is something very, very special, amigo. And I've gone out with the boys drinking beers or at an event or on my morning show, on the Cruising Classic show. And every time I play one of your songs, man, from Latin Breed Breaking the Rules, I always say, if this isn't the greatest hits, one of the best CDs of all time, I don't know what is. Porque it deserves that. It really, really does. Now, my question to you, Gibby, is when did you start putting Latin Breed Breaking the Rules together?
Actually, I started playing with Latin Breed about 1980. We were playing in a club locally here in San Antonio, and we were trying to get the band to do some new recordings. The whole onda had changed in that window of time because as the keyboards became more of a prominent / dominant part of what is Tejano music, we still had the horns, to where they would call it that perhaps old school kind of sound. But we I want to say that band was still kind of very much kind of a progressive kind of situation. But Gilbert Escobedo, who was the leader of the band, he got caught up in that whole Tejano Awards thing. They put that together himself. He was very busy doing that. Hence, we had that club gig that we played like 4 or 5 nights a week, and all that recording thing got put on the back burner. We recorded a few things in the early '80s, but they were never released. Later on, Adalberto became back into the band. This is mid '80s, somewhere in there, and we began laying the groundwork for this album. This album took years to record, right? He recorded a couple of songs, which was Que tú los ojos and No Naciste, and they just kind of sat there. He left the band. After that, we had a couple of people coming through the door, vocalists, right? And finally, after going through a couple of singers, vocalists, whatever, you know, Jesse Perez came into the band. I had met him years earlier recording this band called Mysterio Band, to where he was the drummer, right? You know,
Right.
I recognized his vocal abilities, and when they brought that to my attention, what about this guy? I said, yeah, that guy could work, man. So he came on board. He too had that hunger to record something. So again, like I said, Gibby was busy doing stuff, you know, in his defense, you know, the band was working, but we were ready to go to another level where the boss man there was, you know, he had other things in his agenda. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but once Jay got there, we resurrected those two tracks I spoke of, and then the which one is it? Que Lástima, and the other one, Ay Mujer. Those two songs had been recorded previously with another vocalist, and it was never released. So suddenly we had 4 tracks there, and we started adding to that, coming up with this project here. Bob Griever, who used to run Cara Records back then, you know, I was the staff for the company, and he was always asking me, when are you guys going to record? When are you guys going to record? You know, and I brought it up to Gibby numerous times, you know, and he kind of, you know, I don't want to throw him under the bus, man. He was busy doing other stuff, to where he told me, you know, why don't you go ahead and handle that? Okay, that's all you had to tell me. So, you know, and I got this list of songs. We added a couple of others to that. Don Luis El Tejano, that was another thing that Adalberto had done some initial pre-production work on, right? We finished up those tracks. We added these others, and it was in my mind, you know, Latin Breed was always this progressive fusion kind of band. That's where I came up with those 2 R&B songs. I Want to Know Your Name, Average Guy. Average Guy. That was a song that, you know, before I got into Tejano music, I was more into R&B and rock and stuff like that. So back then, when, you know, when I was, I don't know, 12, 13 years old, I remember these songs. I would hear that Average Guy song on the radio. I had the record, man. I said, you know what? I'm going to record that song. I showed Jay, yeah, that's a good song, blah, 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 blah. And therein, I was working with Little Joe on that. What was that album called? Shoot, man, I don't remember, man. That's where I met the Bob Gallarza guy. And he too had the similar interest in R&B stuff like that, the whole progressive thing. And I said, hey, you know what, dude? Maybe we can collaborate on these 2 songs. And that was his part of that record. He helped me produce those 2 songs, right?
Actually, Gibby, I'm gonna break down the track list in a little bit, which is really, really interesting where you're going to. No doubt, I want to talk about each and every song. Now, let me ask you this: what was the time frame when you got Jay on board, and when you finally finished recording this project? What was the time frame from Jay being on board and you finishing up this project, ready to be released? Was it like a year later, 2 years later?
Probably 2 years later. You know, Jay was in the band there, and he wanted, you know, this you know, desire to record, you know, since the band was you know, focused on other things. You know, Jay left and he went and played with Ram for a while. Yeah, and then when Adalberto left, well, I called him and said, hey, dude, we're working on this thing here. So he came back to the band. This happened between, I don't know, let's say 86 and 88, somewhere in that, you know, in that time frame. So he had left and come back. And when he came back, we finished up that album. Of course, it was released in 89. Is that what we found out here?
That's what we looked up, man. 89 has been forever.
I have the album here, and I was trying to see the release date on there. It's been a minute, but it was 89. So once it was released, you know, yeah, it got some very favorable reviews, right? So suddenly the band was in focus again, in vogue. You know, we started playing again. But
did the gigs start coming in?
Yes, most definitely. Yeah.
As you were getting airplay, no doubt the gigs started getting phone calls. Hey, man, we want you to play over here, play over there.
Yeah, well, yes. But like I said, you know, the leader of the band, you know, he was still focused on that thing. And the band, it was hard to move. It was hard to get the plane up in the air. So eventually Jay left. He went with David Lee, and the rest is history. So the record was there. Great, in my opinion, a great production. But for it to live this long and still kind of so popular, right? I've recorded a lot of records, and this is one of them that still lives true today. Like
Get,
we're here talking about it now.
let's break it down, Gibby. Let's break it down. Off of the Latin Breed Breaking the Rules, track number 1. Talk to me about No Naciste para mí.
It's No Naciste para mí, and that was previously recorded by Latin Breed 100 years ago. But when Alberto was doing his pre-production work, he bought it and kind of added a new twist to the arrangement, I want to say. And yeah, Albert is very, he's very good at that too. They added this progressive kind of chord structure. Some of those licks in there come from some other jazz bands that still exist today. But nonetheless, that's where that song came from. It was an old Latin Breed recording that Albert kind of resurrected.
Who picked that song? Did you or did
Alberto did?
he pick that song for this project?
Yes, and I chose to keep it on the album because he had left the band. We could have thrown it out, but it was a great song, great arrangement, and it lives there.
If you hit the Gibby, it wasn't personal when Alberto left. You said, "I'm still going to keep the song," right? Because you knew it was a good song, ¿verdad?
Yeah, himself and this other guy Joel Guzman had worked on those.
Joel Guzman.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I wound up finishing them up.
Okay.
And on the album.
Okay. Track number 2, Don Luis El Tejano. Talk to me about this one.
Don Luis El Tejano is written by this guy from Washington State, Juan Barco. Very prolific songwriter. He's written numerous songs recorded by David Lee and gosh, I don't remember who else. I just remember some of those songs that I recorded with David Lee that he had written. That's a very special song. It talks about the plight of the migrant worker. There are a lot of people have lived that life, and it's a special song. As of late, I recorded it again with Roberto Polido. It was released a month or two ago, and it's a great song. If you listen to it, drink a beer and listen to it, it'll make you cry.
It can be considered, and I have problems rolling my R here, but I'll try it. Is it considered a corrido?
A corrido, yeah, I guess you could say that.
Right.
A corrido that tells a story about an individual.
There you go. Like Don Luis El Tejano.
Yeah.
¿Verdad?
Yeah.
Okay, track number 3, Mi Sueño.
Mi Sueño, gosh, who's the writer? I don't remember who the writer is on that, man. Let me see. I have it here. Who's the writer? Let me see. Blah, 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 blah. Ah, it doesn't say. Maybe it says it on the album.
It doesn't have it.
It brings too small. But nonetheless, I picked that song from a batch of songs that were presented to us. And that one, too, we tried to kind of make it a little progressive. It is what it is. Great song. And a song like that, like the band, they still play it today.
Awesome song. Beautiful song, man. The arrangements is all right there. It really, really is. Track number 5, track number 4, Ay Mujer. Classic, right?
Yes, that's one of the songs I spoke of that we had recorded it, in the early 80s with Ruben Cubillos, one of the guys that was singing with the band back then. We recorded it and it just stayed there on the shelf. Later on, I believe we re-recorded it again with this other individual, Ralph Cortez. And again, it was just never released. So when we got on this project, it's a great song. And I said, it's time to include it in here. And of course, Jay did a great job on it, but he was not the original vocalist there. We had already recorded it twice. And every time we recorded it was the same arrangement. So that recording there was a fresh arrangement of stuff that had been recorded years before.
Amigo, it never ceases to.
I still have those versions in my archive there. I have the version with these other vocalists on there, man. One of these days, somehow I need to present all of that. And
definitely,
story, man.
You kind of enhance what I'm going to say right now. It never ceases to amaze me how there could be music in the closets and the shelves that had never been brought out, and a lot of them can be 24 karat gold songs, man.
Oh, trust me, I got a closet full of that stuff here.
I can imagine, dude. I can only imagine. Track number 5, I'm Just an Average Guy. What a song. Talk to me about this one.
That was one of the R&B tracks that myself and Bob, we got together and went through some music, and we both picked that one. I picked the Average Guy song, and he says, "Let me find one," and we came up with that song. I forget who the original artist is, some R&B artist from the '60s, but the arrangement that Bob did to it, he totally flipped it around. Thank God, Jay did a great job. That's a to me, I'm very biased because I did it, but that's a great recording. In the beginning of the song, if you listen closely, you hear the idea was to kind of create like a club scene. If you've heard the song, you hear people talking in the background, like in a club setting. That was Jay's first wife, Laurie, talking, and my wife, Debbie, was answering her. I don't know. It is what it is, but those are the two people talking in the middle. When we're finished with this, listen closely to the track, and you'll hear.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. I'm not trying to correct you. You're the person that did all this. We're talking about I'm Just an Average Guy, because I know on track number 9, I Want to Know Your Name, you did the club city.
Yes. I'm getting mixed up here. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
This guy is the one that I had the record from
Okay.
from 1967, somewhere back there. And
We're
I always
gonna-
like.
We're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about I Want to Know Your Name. And so on I'm Just an Average Guy, that was another one that Jay did a tremendous job on vocalist, didn't he?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, I have the original 45 there. You can YouTube it. I'm Just an Average Guy, and then the original version will come out. But the way we did it, we just totally flipped it from what it originally sounded like.
Gibby, who was the original singer? Can you remember?
Of that song,
I'm Just an Average Guy.
I don't remember the name of the group, but if I have you here and I'll YouTube it, it'll come out here. I don't know.
I'm sure. Oh, no biggie. No biggie. I'm just, hey, man, just asking. All right. Track number 6. This is a classic, man. Que chulos ojos.
That was another one of those songs that Alberto had worked and did some pre-production work on it. And again, Que chulos ojos, Alberto had recorded it back in the '70s with Latin Reed, right? There's another arrangement, an old school arrangement that is still around there today. But that fresh new arrangement at that time, has elements of progressive jazz, whatever, that we tried to incorporate. And gosh, well, listen to it. It's to this day, there's nothing that.
Of course not. Of course not. Gibby. So on Que chulos ojos, I'll test your memory. I'm testing mine as well. Wasn't that on Overdrive or Power Drive or something like that?
You're right. Yeah, it's on one of those albums.
Right. Colorful
yeah.
album. Something Power Drive, something like that. I remember something like that, man. Just awesome music for you to bring it back. Track number 7, Que Lástima.
That's another song that another one of those little gems that we had recorded previous with Ruben Cubillos. He sang it. And when this project came along, we re-recorded it again, and of course Jay sang it. But there in the archives, there's another version with the other guys singing that was just never released. So you see what I'm saying? That all the stars were lined up at that point in time to where you got songs from here and here and here and put this together, and it is what it is.
Can you imagine, Gibby? I mean, you've got all this star power around you, and Jay comes out of left field. And you picked Jay to do this CD, and what a job he did to enhance this music.
Yeah, he's a very good interpreter of music. He's a great vocalist to start with, but a good and what makes a great vocalist is your ability to interpret the song when you hear the lyrics, and you're able to expand in a natural kind of way on the melody and like that. I mean, I could go on and on. It could get complicated, but yeah, the guy's very good, very, very blessed and gifted to do what it is he does.
No doubt. Now, track number 9. Now we're going to go back to what you were talking about. Before I give it to you on this one, let me just say this. Out of all these songs, all these hits that are on this album, I Want to Know Your Name, I simply love the way it comes in. It gives you the bar setting, the club setting. You hear the crowd. Beautiful, man. Just awesome. What an awesome job to give the listeners that feel that you're at a club. Where did you come out with this?
To be honest with you, a lot of that was Bob's input. We had put the song. We went to Houston. We recorded those two tracks in Houston with a group of musicians in Houston. Myself and Jay, we drove up there and recorded those tracks and bought the tape back to San Antonio and finished putting horns on here. But that rhythm section, meaning the drummer, bass, keyboard, and guitar, that was a group of musicians in Houston. They're listed there on the album if you care to look that up.
But like I said, Gibby, the way it starts off, and even in the middle, where Jay goes out and starts talking to his wife at the time, correct? That's his wife at the time, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, man, it's one thing to put a recording out there with the club sound to it, but when people can embrace the club sound and you make them feel like if they're there, that's a different ballgame, man. That takes it to the next level. And that song, I Want to Know Your Name, takes you there. It takes you to the club. It makes you feel like if you're there, dude.
Okay, well, I'm glad you were able to get that out of it.
Well, on I Want to Know Your Name, I'm going to stay with this for just a second here. Where did the idea come to bring in Jay's wife? And you said there was another girl too, right? Somebody?
It was my wife, Deborah.
It was whose wife?
My wife, Deborah.
Your wife and Jay's wife. Where did y'all come up with the idea? We'll get the wives in here, man, and get them into recording.
Actually, they just happened to be there at the studio that day.
Okay.
Let's try this and let's do this. And there, it's kind of very just
simple.
Kind of like a brain fart there, yes.
Spontaneous works sometimes, man. Spontaneous works. It really, really, but not all the time, but sometimes, and it worked like a charm there. Track number 10, the reunion medley. Who put this together?
Myself, and the guy that was helping me at that time doing keyboard work was Joel Guzman. We needed another track for the album, and we thought, well, let's just put a medley together with these, some of the hits that the band had recorded down through the years. And that too was very popular and hot at that time. It still is, right? You hear it, and it still works. I've done a couple of others down through the years. I did one with this band Aviso that included that Jimmy Edwards song sang. I don't know if you've heard it, but this one is very good. And people have done 1, 2, 3 other medleys, and all of a sudden that became a popular thing. But we put it together there in the studio, and the segues in between the songs. The first song, a piece of music, the second song, a piece of music. Yeah, I did a lot of that myself. So again, a great piece of music. I'm very biased because I did it, but hey, sounds good to me.
It's excellent. Now, when you finally finished your project and it was ready to be released, I noticed that it was released on CBS, correct?
Yeah, at that point in time is when Cara Records was sold out to CBS, and they kind of merged. And like I said, Bob Griever, who owned Cara Records, yeah, he still worked with CBS, and they released it on that label. They made a CD. I think it was one of the first albums to come out on a CD. I remember I driving to Houston to digitize the track so they could make CDs out of it. It was kind of a complicated process back then, but now it's normal. But that's another technical fact about that recording.
That was when everything was jumping ship from cassette album to CD, and it was like a transition phase where everybody was jumping because that was the latest thing, CDs, ¿verdad?
Yes, that album was released on vinyl, on cassette, and CD. Here, man, of each.
Go ahead, Gibby. No, go ahead. And what else?
I said I have a couple of copies of all three of those. The vinyl, the CD, the cassette.
I have only one left. I used to have 3 copies of Breaking the Rules on CD, but I sold 2. I got 1. I got what I wanted from them. I got my music. That's all I need. I'm not a music collector because I'm not, but I have tons of music regardless of everything I've used in my lifetime doing what I do. But like I
Yeah,
said,
I'm not really a music collector per se, but this album, I had the guys sign it. You probably can't see it, but I had the guys sign this, and I have it here, kind of on display here in the studio.
and
People are they're willing to buy it, but no, no, that lives here until when? I don't know, but
I hear you. I hear you. Okay, Gibby. Everything's kicking now. By the way, they went from CBS to EMI,
yes,
the production, ¿verdad?
yes. After time, some of the people that were working at CBS jumped ship and created or became a subsidiary of Capitol Records, right? Capitol EMI.
Right.
They made Capitol EMI Latin, and that's when when all of these groups, it was the onda was really jumping at that time. You had these two big record companies uh, uh, recording Tejano music. That's another story.
Yeah.
So the group that Bob had, he moved them over to CBS and then wound up moving them over to EMI.
Correct me
So
if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Latin Breed Breaking the Rules take TTMA's album of the year?
I don't know. I don't remember. Maybe they did.
I think they did. I think that was the one where they knocked Moss off.
Ah,
I think that was I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, I remember saying, "Man, it took a lot to knock off Moss." And if I got it correctly, it was Latin Breed Breaking the Rules that got album of the year that year.
let me give you another little story. So after
Sure.
breaking the rules, we started recording another album, which was the Born to Play album, right?
Oh yeah.
And Jay had already sang a lot of those songs, but when he left the band to go with David Lee, of course, I had to remove his voice and put Roger's voice on there. But that too lives in the archives. So there's stuff there that somehow someday people could give a listen to and most interesting.
I'm familiar with Born to Play, but that's I never knew that Jay had already. Well, let me ask you this, Gibby. Where when did you find out that Jay was going to leave? Was it about a year after breaking the rules? 2 years after breaking the rules? 6 months? When did Jay leave Latin Breed to move on to David Lee?
Man, it's hard to tell, man. It could have been a good year later because we already had started working on the next album, which was
Yeah,
Born to Play. Yeah, we were
right.
already working on that album. Yeah,
I remember that there'd be advertisements on KXTN of Latin Breed with Jay Pettis performing at Reflex,
yeah.
and playing at what was the place on the Ingram Road over there as the Desperados.
Desperados. There was a handful of jumping Tejano clubs here in town.
You guys were on fire. That's why I ask you. So, recording Jay on the Born to Play, was it mandatory that you had to take his voice off because he went with David Lee?
Well, yeah, he was no longer part of the band, so we had to find somebody else to fill in. Okay, and
Okay,
and hard shoes to fill, but I got a hold of Roger and he did that, and how do you say the rest is history? So Roger's got the bragging rights on that one. Although Jay was, all those tracks were initially put together for Jay.
Born to Play came out like in about 91. I put 92, something like
Yeah.
that. I remember
By
because
then, by then Jay was already with David Lee. Remember the
right,
album 13?
sure, 13, yeah, yeah. But even then, those albums were going through your recording studio, correct?
Yeah, I used to work out of the studio called Zas Studios over here on West Commerce, the other side of town.
Joey,
You know,
really?
since,
Joey?
yeah, since I worked for the label, the way that used to work, I was a staff producer for the label, and I was just using the studio. I'd pay them for their time. Until a couple of years later, I got into my own place, and I've been here like 30 years, and we're still jumping, still moving, still
And
recording.
16 Grammys later. ¿Verdad? 16, that's right. That's right. Um, Gibby, like I was telling, I started this in the beginning. I was saying This is going to be, I'm going to put the focus on Let and Breed Breaking the Rules because I felt it deserves this. We're going to definitely have to get together again, maybe in a month or something like that, whenever we both have time to get together again. And we need to talk about other projects that have gone through your recording studio because I'm sure you've got a lot of interesting stories there, amigo, a whole bunch.
I've been approached by a group of people about doing a book that will tell the story of my journey, and there's a lot to tell there. So hopefully I'll find the time to address this and put it in words, and it would make interesting reading for those who really love this genre of music and the stories kind of sort of behind the scenes of
Definitely.
how recordings were
Definitely.
made.
That's why, Gibby.
Every recording has its story. Every album there that I've done, from La Mafia to Mas to Selena to Musicales to on and on and on, and Bami Naranjo.
Por eso, amigo, por eso te digo, amigo, I mean, there's just so much more to talk about. But like I said, on this one here, I wanted to put the focus on Let and Breed Breaking the Rules. Now, as they're trying to close up this conversation with you, any special memories being in the recording studio doing breaking the rules? Anything that stood out than from a lot of other things that were going on in the studio doing the recording? Algo especial recording the CD.
The special moment would have to be that one session where we had the group of people in there kind of trying to recreate that bar scene we spoke of, the wives speaking and like that, yeah, that was kind of special for me,
Was that difficult?
Was it difficult? No, not really. Of course, there was alcohol involved. So
Well, if you're gonna have a bar scene, let's make it a bar scene, man. ¿Verdad, Gibby? Amigo, on a side note, I can remember, I'm sure you know, maybe you don't, I don't know. One thing, let me just say before I ask you what I'm going to ask you. I know of you, of course. Who wouldn't if you're in La Onda Tejana like I've been? And it's how ironic that I've never had a conversation with you. Never, not once. And I've been around you in the sense porque I was a DJ at T-Town. I can remember when you were backing up Jay, right? You were in the band with Jay when Jay would go perform there, etc. When Jay was bouncing around.
When Jay left Musicales, me and him, we used to kind of hang out back then, and he worked with me in the studio when I was working on other projects. He always had my back there, laying down harmonies or whatever, what have you. But so we were close friends, and he always had mentioned that he wanted to do his own thing. He wanted to get his own thing going. So when he left Los Musicales, well, I was the first one he called and said, "Hey, I'm ready to do this, man. Are you ready? Ready for what? We need to get the band." So yes, I was. You can ask him. I was the one who put that band together with a group of studio musicians that I was working with in that window of time, including Chente, Jerry La Rosa, and Speedy and whatnot. Yeah. I put that together, and hey, I got the plane up in the air, and he kept it going, and it's still going, right? So,
how long have you been in La Onda Tejana? When did you start getting? When did you get involved? Music wise, till now. Is it what you're 15, 14 years old, 18? When did you get started with this, man?
Around 1970, 71. I was playing with a group here in town called the Latin Tones. We played quinceañeras.
Oh yeah, man.
But when I graduated from high school in 74 is when I got in with the Royal Jesters, and that started my journey in what we call today Tejano music. Yeah. But prior to that, I was just doing that kind of stuff. Of course, like a lot of other people or musicians, I grew up listening to R&B and rock and like that. I really didn't get seriously into Chicano music or Tejano music till I got in with the Royal Jesters and later on with the Latin Breed. But I've done other things, and perhaps that's where my background comes from, because I've played all styles of music. And the thing is, you bring what you've learned there, or what you've digested there, and bring it over here and add it to Tejano music. Maybe that's the twist that makes things work for me in the fashion that it does. I always bring stuff that I've done in the past or that I've heard from Motown stuff or whatever, and you apply it over here, and that's the sound.
Gibby, we keep on losing a lot, and I'll go with our genre, Tejano, regional. We're losing a lot of our music icons, amigo. Um,
Yeah.
it just, I tell people if you get a chance to see one of your favorite singers, whatever, go see them, porque you don't even know if they're gonna be back next week because we keep on losing them.
Yeah, some of these guys are getting up in age, but someone told me we're all in line going that way. Some people cut the line, but we're all in line going that way. So yes, I would encourage to support the Hana music.
Last question for you, Gibby, and I'm gonna make it a tough one. Maybe it's not for you. I don't know. We're gonna find out, amigo. Latin breed, breaking the rules. What's your favorite song?
It's hard to say, man. It's like
I thought maybe.
all good, right? So, I like that average guy song because like I said, that was one of my. I had the record when I was a kid. I bought the record from I forget the name of the group, man, but yes, that was my favorite. That song I brought it to the table, and great production.
I don't
People
know.
ask me a lot about your favorite group, your favorite recording, but I've done a lot of stuff to say one is better than the other. No, in my mind, they're all who's your big artist you're recording right now? They're all big. They're all paying me their money, man. So I cannot favor one over the other because they're paying me. It's what I do. It's how I make a living. So you got to give us attention to Little Joe or Brand X over here. That's it's all the same to me.
They're all your children, in a sense, right? Gibby, when I was working for EMI Latin, when I first went over there, I'll never forget my boss. You probably know him, John Ortiz. You ever met
John
him?
Ortiz. Yes, I know John. I saw him here lately at the shops there in San Marcos.
There
I
you
don't
go.
know. When he walked in, said, "Hey, how you doing?" But anyway, I see him here and there, and everybody's on Facebook, so once in a while you bump into him there. But yes, I know him well, and
Well,
I'm talking about Manolo Gonzalez, which was his
right, that
boss.
was his boss. Well, I'll never forget the first week I was working there at EMI. He told me, "I'm going to tell you something that you're going to appreciate your 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 efforts, and I'm going to go to you on this as well." And he told me the beauty of what you're about to do, promoting music, going on the road, going to radio stations, pushing songs, promoting music. He said the beauty of it is when you're on the road and you hear a song on the radio and you know that you're part of why that song is being played on the radio because you promoted it. Now,
Yeah,
I go to you. I go to you. How does it feel, Gibby, being on the road, listening to the radio, listening to whatever, and you hear songs that you know that you recorded in your recording studio? What a feeling. What is your feeling hearing that?
my feeling is that it warms my heart, and HEB, the HEB, in my neighborhood is El Mercado over there on Culebra, right? And they're always playing some kind of Tejano music, and I'm walking in there and I'm hearing it, and it's like, hey, I did that, but nobody knows. My favorite line is nobody cares. You're hearing it. That's my work there, man. One time, um, I took a trip to Acapulco. I'm always busy. I found a chance to finally take a break and take a trip, right? Get away from the studio, get away from the music. So after a long flight and delays and everything, finally get to Acapulco, and we're walking through the terminal there, and they're playing No Te Olvidaré. I said, damn, I just got out of there, and they're playing it over here. Yeah, yeah, it follows you, man. It follows you. Here's
That's
another
right.
story.
That's right.
I was in Los Angeles. Okay, yeah, we're all very impressed. I was sitting on the pier in Santa Monica, the beach there. There's people, exercising, playing tennis or volleyball or whatever, and there was a group of people here with a jam box, and they were lying out in the sun, and I was sitting there by myself just watching, and they're playing Selena on there, and they're sitting over there, and I'm like, hey, I did that. I'm the guy, man. But yeah, yeah,
It's crazy porque a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I was in San Francisco. Went to go check out a baseball game, right? And I'm in a taxi. They're taking me back to where I'm staying at, right, in San Francisco. And he's got the radio low, but I'm hearing it. And a Selena song comes on, and I go, man, she's everywhere. San
Yes,
Francisco, man.
a couple of months ago, I went and did a gig in San Francisco, and I was in an Uber, and the guy's driving along, and they're playing Celine. I said, "Man, listen to that, man. It follows you, man." Yes. So hey, that's just a testimony to the fact that we did our job and we did it good, right? You
That's
too.
right. That's right, amigo. That's right. And even more so, you 16-time Grammy Award winning. And I'm going to tell you the way I started off, me talking to you. If not the greatest CD of all time, and I stand by it humbly, but that's my opinion. If not the greatest Tejano CD of all time, it's right up there. It really, really is. And I congratulate you on your production, your efforts, and everything it took for you to put it together. Porque that was one hell of a job you did, amigo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any last words you want to say about your production, about yourself, to your fans, anything?
Yeah, keep supporting Tejano music. Keep buying the music, and when these groups play out on the road, please go support them, man. Don't be looking for the freebie, man. These people live off of this music thing, man. You know, and at times, you know, at certain times, or sometimes, you know, perhaps our genre is overwhelmed by others, and we got to keep this going. It's part of our culture. It's not going to go away, but you know, it's there were times where it was perhaps more profitable. You could monetize it more easily than what it is today, and that's a whole other thing, you know. Nowadays, instead of buying an album, they're going to just download one song, man. You know, so times have changed. So that, you know, just keep supporting the music.
There you go. I tell you what, I'm going to close this out by telling you this. The next time I go to a taqueria, I'm going to say, let me have 2 eggs, some frijolitos, some papas, and thinking of my buddy Gibby, throw in a pork chop. Échale un pork chop ahí también, hombre. Gibby Velasquez, thank you so very much for joining me.
Okay, man. We'll see you soon.